Hello everyone, I'm NiniFC and this is Blue Lions TV, and today I'm bringing you guys a match review of our 5-3 penalty win over Norwich City in the FA Cup. We will be playing against Newcastle on the 28th of January, and you know what, it was a very hard fought win in the end. There was a lot of controversy throughout this game, plus again another game where we haven't won the game in the 90 minutes, so again it is pretty disappointing, but I'm going to be going through a few things during this match review. In terms of the lineup, it was expected. Conte did say that he would be using Ampadu in this game, and it was quite interesting because Conte actually used Ampadu on the right hand side and he played Azpilicueta on the left hand side. Now sometimes I have been like hypothesizing at times in terms of thinking, why couldn't Azpi play on the left at times during moments this season? Of course Alonso is on the left hand side, he doesn't really have that recovery pace. Azpilicueta is more of a defender now these days, but he has had a lot of experience playing on the left hand side, and maybe those two could really complement each other in a way. In terms of Ampadu's performance, it was decent. Again, you know, when we're signing these young players, they are of a very high ability and standard already, so I didn't feel he really excelled in this game, but he didn't have to. He didn't look out of place playing with the first team. Didn't really see him come to push out as much either when it came to really supporting the play further up the pitch. Conte seemed to have told him to stay deeper at times, and it was quite weird because we did have Luiz in the team as well. I was surprised that we didn't really try to build out from the back as much. Conte didn't really tell any of those defenders to really push into midfield to really help give support to the team in those advanced situations, and also hopefully try and break down Norwich as well. At times, too often, it was a compact back three, and I think it's a bit unnecessary at times. Now, the only positive really throughout this game was that opening 15 minutes where we were testing Norwich's goal quite a lot. Really, we should have won the game in that first 15 minutes. We had chances from set pieces, we had efforts on goal, efforts from distance as well, and we were really applying the pressure on Norwich. Willian had the best chance of that opening 15 minutes and he could have done better. A bit unlucky, but again, if he's finishing that chance, the game's over, because really, with the way we play, the system we use, it's imperative that we get the first goal, because really, it changes the whole dynamics of the game. Still, we were getting so much luxury in that first 15 minutes because Norwich were affording us the space. That is just the honest truth to the matter. With the front three, they did match our system, 3-4-3 as well, but when it came to defending and supporting their midfield, they didn't really offer anything. The front three didn't offer anything. Fark had to change things to a 5-4-1 for them to really combat against Chelsea's midfields, and it was when that defensive support came for Norwich, that was when the game started to slow down a bit and our passing was very slow, very tepid, and we weren't really creating as much as we should have. Drinkwater was very unlucky with an effort in that first half, and it was quite surprising to see him take so many efforts from distance in this game, and I realised we are taking way too many efforts from distance, and I think it's a bit unnecessary, and in a way it's really telling me that the team are really struggling to find those solutions when it comes to breaking teams down and playing through. And really, Hazard and Fabregas are key to actually helping us to break down defensive teams. And it was around this time that Norwich was starting to really get into the game, and they were defending quite comfortably at times, I must say. And this is what I keep reiterating all the time. When it comes to our attacking build-up play, it just isn't on the level it should be at this moment in time. It's too rigid. There isn't enough free-flowing movement in the final third. There isn't enough support in the final third as well. And this is why we can really struggle, because again, it's kind of like we've created islands in the team. We have the islands on the left with the wing backs on the left hand side and the right hand side. We have the islands with the front three, and we have the island with the midfield two or midfield three as well. And it's like there's no unity between any of these islands across the pitch, and this is why it comes across that we're so rigid and there's no movement. Now during the second half, again, it wasn't really much of an improvement, even though Mitchell did score a goal and it was a decent effort. To me, it was more poor defending from Norwich's part. I don't know, Mitchell in this game today, I was seeing throughout social media that Conte should be giving him more of a chance. I do agree with that, but I think if you are going to use Mitchell, you have to play towards his strengths. I keep saying this all the time. Mitchell isn't a Conte striker at all. Honestly, the amount of times he gave the ball away was just ridiculous, because it's like, I was comparing him to Oliveira, and this is a guy playing a league below for a team that are 13th in the championship, and honestly, it would have looked like he was more of a Premier League player than Mitchell was, and I think that's quite telling. So many times giving away fouls, especially the first like 5 minutes of the second half, giving away 3 unnecessary fouls. He wasn't holding the play up, wasn't linking up the play as well with movement in behind or anything of that matter, and it was quite disappointing. And on top of that, we were gifting opportunities to Norwich because we were really playing out from the back very sloppily, and it's just like without Fabregas in that team as well to really help with the build-up play, or Christensen for example as well, we really do struggle at times. The amount of opportunities that we gifted to Norwich wasn't good enough. They hit the post a few times, they had some threat from set pieces as well, and it just wasn't the best performance really. Now the game is coming to an end and Conte decides to bring on Kante and Christensen. It's looking like the inevitable. It looks like we're going to be sealing out a very mediocre 1-0 win, but again, we've drawn how many games recently? We need to get the first win, but of course that wasn't to be. Now there are a few things for this, and there's one thing I constantly keep complaining about, which I must say, and that is the fact that too often we play without control. How many times will you see us throughout a game maybe keep the ball, keep possession, dominate the play, and in the last 20-15 minutes we decide to play without the ball? And it's like, what? Because we're given 3 opportunities and chances to these teams that have had not much of a threat throughout the entire game, and you give them a chance to flood men forward and attack, and now this happens way too often. I think the substitutions Conte made were a bit unnecessarily defensive, and again, you're really telling the whole team sit back and try and soak up some pressure, and you also give the opposition team a bit of hope that they can do something if the right service or delivery comes in, and of course that was to be the case. Now I've actually analysed this goal so many times, and I was actually going to release a video clip of this, but then of course demonetized, I wasn't able to do that. And the main culprit for why all these types of goals are always conceded, it wasn't David Luiz, which people kept thinking it might be, it was Zappacosta. And what did Zappacosta do again? Zappacosta didn't get tight enough to the guy crossing the ball in, and of course Aspie and David Luiz were outmanned. If you actually look at the replay, there were about 3 Norwich players advancing towards the ball. David Luiz, it wasn't his fault because he was drawn by the other guy in front of him. He was left in no man's land, had 2 players on either side. It's undefendable in those situations. Aspie again, he couldn't get tight enough as well. Now here's the thing, it came down to Zappacosta. If Zappacosta, first of all, if he had run back in position to create that 5 at the back in time, that would have meant that Christensen wouldn't have had to push out far to the right. That would have meant that Christensen wouldn't have had to push out further to the right hand side. That left Aspie and David Luiz by themselves, and of course Bakayoko, if he was more defensively astute, really he should have noticed straight away that, oh, Aspie's pushed further out, I'm going to move into defence now. Of course Bakayoko doesn't do that because he just isn't that great just yet, and this is why we give the Norwich a ridiculous chance to equalise the game right at the end, and of course they took their opportunity, and literally in the last second of the game it goes to extra time. Now we actually do start extra time off pretty well. Then now the controversy comes into play. Willian doesn't get a clear penalty, and of course a lot of people are criticising the VAR system, but again, with anything new, you guys, we have to be patient, because the reality of football is in the next year or 2, when it's, let's say it's become mainstream and it's actually introduced, no one's going to be caring about this thing that happened 2 years ago. It's just part of the growing pains of this new system. At the end of the day, I can't understand how any referee is looking at the replay of this and thinking in his head, no, it isn't a penalty. Now, until robots start refereeing games, we're going to have to put up this type of nonsense, unfortunately. I mean, I still can't get over the utter nonsense and how this wasn't a penalty. Another controversial moment happens with Pedro, and it was a clear dive. And I think with Pedro, and I think with most players really in general, when you are advancing on the goalkeeper, you always try to fall down a bit more easily, because normally 9 times out of 10 you're getting a penalty. Pedro timed it wrong. Do I think it was right that Pedro dived? Honestly, you guys, I'm not really the right guy to ask that, because I really don't care about diving. I just think it's a part of football. Did Pedro do a stupid thing? Yeah, of course. Do I care about diving? Honestly, you guys, I'm the last person that cares about diving. And on top of that, Pedro gets another unnecessary yellow card, and then he takes us down to 10 men. And with the last controversial incident, that's in regards to Morata, and to me, that was a clear penalty as well. I don't understand why you need so much contact. If that same foul was given outside the box, we see that happen all the time. It's always a foul. So if it happens inside the box, regardless of if there was minimal contact, it really doesn't matter. It was a penalty. And I think Morata had every right to be angry in the moment. Morata does have a reputation for really being lippy and leery with referees, and paid the price for it in the game last night. And that brings us down to 9 men. Honestly, from being a few seconds away from qualifying in 90 minutes. So obviously going into extra time with 9 men and then going on to penalties, and you know, you have a history of not being the best team on penalties as well. It's really stressful. But actually I was very happy to see the confidence at which these penalties were taken. I thought N'Golo's was fantastic in this game today. David Luiz, the classic long run up and shot at the end. Eden Hazard with this composed finish at the end. And you know, so many players took responsibility, and I just really think that if we happen to be, let's say, in the Champions League game, goes to extra time and we're on penalties, I'm feeling very confident that those 5 players that took the penalties are going to take theirs and finish it. So that's a nice facet to have in case anything happens in knockout round football. But again, another disappointing performance. No young players used, no Masunda at all, even though Masunda was fantastic against Portsmouth in the Checker Trade Trophy. Of course, Conte wasn't going to give him a chance in this game. Same thing with Dujon Sterling as well. Zappacosta, I've been very unimpressed with him. His defending is so poor, and I'm surprised that no one really picks up on it. He just doesn't get tight enough. He doesn't ever stop crosses. He doesn't prevent them from happening. And I made this point earlier. It's the reason why we conceded that was purely because of Zappacosta. And when you use a 3 at the back system, you have to defend zonally. You can't pick up a man. I mean, think about it like this. You've got a striker or two. You can't be having man marking each of those front two. It's about picking up your positions and your zones. And a lot of times why we concede from crosses inside our box is because there is space to run into, and it just depends on the delivery. Now, the whole point of this system is to stop those crosses from coming in. But then again, too often when Zappacosta plays, just as he did against Arsenal, he allows the cross to come in because he's never in position on time and he never gets tight enough. Still, watching this game, it wasn't our best performance, but it hasn't been the worst performance I've seen. I think we created enough chances really to seal out the win. And honestly, I'm actually going to summarise this game to it just being, you know, an FA Cup game where it is hard at times. Could Conte have done more? As I keep stressing, his game management isn't great. It's never been good in my opinion. A few things he could have done if he made some early substitutions to really force Norwich back and limit what they could do, then I think we could have got a few more goals in normal time and it would have been a much more comfortable win. We can only pray that Conte is going to adapt. He is going to notice these things. But again, when Conte was adapting and changing things last year, that was when there was pressure on his back. Now, of course, when he started things off, we weren't doing very well and not winning a few games after. You can tell the board was on his back, and this is why he was so quick to change into a 3-4-3, even though he hadn't finished working on it in the training grounds. Do I feel that same pressure's on Conte's back right now? Honestly, I'm not too sure because Conte hasn't been too quick when it's come to making changes. But maybe I'm just looking into things a bit too much. But anyway, you guys, that's going to bring an end to the match review for our mediocre performance against Norwich City. If anything, it was better than the first leg against them. But again, too many chances were missed. Anyway, you guys, thanks for watching. There is going to be a Transfer Daily video coming up in the next few hours, so stay tuned and I'll see you guys all later.